Yeah. Where is it? Search. This- oh, look at it. What's that? Okay. Second. Oh no. What's it this one?
Li- Life Love Lessons Series 2 is designed with men in mind. Yes, men, brothers. Listen, you are fearfully and wonderfully made. You have uncovered capacity for abundant living and loving. Hi, I am Teacher Hazel. Teaching is my ministry. I invite you, I challenge you to listen and learn some secrets that I will share with you in life love lessons with men in mind.
Greetings, hello, and welcome to Series 2 of Life Love Lessons. I am Reverend Dr. Teacher Hazel Ann Gibbs de Pisa, better known as Teacher Hazel. My intention is to encourage you to love the life you live and live a life you love, and to empower you to access the more abundant life that Christ came to give us by revealing and unraveling some of life, love lessons. This is lesson 1 of Life Love Lessons with Men in Mind. And the lesson is entitled Why? Definitions and Distinctions. And so we begin. And we begin with an acknowledgement of our Creator and Sustainer. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. The presence of God sustains us. Wherever we are, God is. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. I thank God for you, and I thank you for being here with me. It is my pleasure to welcome you to Life Love Lessons with Men in Mind. The format for Series 2 is just like that of Series 1. There are 8 lessons on 8 consecutive Thursday nights, beginning at 10 p.m. Each lesson lasts for just about 1 hour. The first 40 to 45 minutes are for the presentation of the lesson, the content, and the next 15 to 20 minutes are for your questions and my answers. And you may put your questions in the chat at any point in time, but I will read and answer them in Q&A time after the presentation. I must admit, however, that I am not certain for tonight that I will have access to the questions. I hope I do. But if I don't, I assure you that the next lesson, I will have access to it. Okay? So welcome each and every one of you to Life Love Lessons with Men in Mind. And I'm looking forward to a wonderful session, and I hope that you are too. So let us now make some connections between Series 1 and Series 2. Series 1, Life Love Lessons for Women of Faith, was underpinned by the question, if you truly are a woman of faith, then why do you not believe? How did I know you didn't believe? Because true believers don't murmur and complain all day, every day, at every opportunity. Instead, they P-U-S-H, push. That is, they pray until something happens. And they don't dwell in F-E-A-R. They know that fear is false evidence appearing real. And most of all, they live by F-A-I-T-H, faith, because they are tuned in to finding answers in the heart. Series 2, Life Love Lessons with Men in Mind, is structured with men in mind. Why with men in mind? Well, I'll give you a little story. God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him. Male and female created he them. And that story comes from Genesis 1:27. Both men and women are created by God in his image. Not one or the other, but both. It is only natural, therefore, that there will be life love lessons not only for the female, but also for the male that God created in his own image. Remember, Adam said, "This is now bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman because she was taken out of man." And that's Genesis 2:23. So we've done the women, and now we are doing a series for the men. And further to that, the Lord God commanded the man, saying, "Of every tree of the garden thou mayest freely eat, but of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil thou shalt not eat of it, for in the day that thou eatest thereof thou shalt surely die." That's Genesis 2:16-17. With such a grave responsibility, man must indeed be aware and seek to know some of life love lessons. No, you say, not anymore. The fruit was eaten and the rest is history. Hmm. It brings to mind the old nursery rhyme. Yes, old. If you remember this one, you are selling out your age. The pig was eaten, Tom was beaten, Tom went roaring down the street. Some of you remember. Herein lies the difference. Tom's story ended at the end of the poem, but Adam is still being beat and he is still running, roaring down the street, increasing the need for life love lessons with men in mind. And no, we are not engaging in the blame game of that old story. One of life love lessons that we learned in series 1 is that what is, is. The circumstance is what it is. But how we perceive the circumstance and how we respond to the circumstance is what makes all the difference. There we have choice. We choose how to perceive and how to respond because your perception is your reality. And we are going to go further into that statement in this lesson. So why? Why life love lessons? Let us briefly define the terms. Life. Life is that journey from birth to death when the spiritual being sojourns in an earth suit for a human experience here on this terrestrial ball. Spirit was there before birth. Spirit continues after death. Spirit, breath, life is eternal. Flesh, body, the journey is temporal. 2 Corinthians 4:18 tells us, "For the things which are seen are temporal, but the things which are not seen are eternal." So we understand life from 2 points of view, that it is continuous, no beginning, no ending, but that the journey that we call life runs from birth, a beginning, to death and ending, because once there's a beginning, there is an ending. Love. In the Holy Bible, 1 John 4:8, God is love. 4:7, love is of God. The well-known and often quoted 1 Corinthians 13 gives an extended definition of love, and we're all familiar with it. John 3:16 explains love. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son. Love is the essence of God. It is the character of God. 1 John 4:16 tells us God is love, and he that dwelleth in love dwelleth in God, and God in him. And I'm sure you remember the Sunday school chorus that tells us it's love, it's love, it's love that makes the world go round. It's love that makes the world go round. Yes. And lessons. Lessons are things to learn and study. Things you don't know. But you know a lot, don't you? Yes, I know you do. But lessons are not just learning new information or new content. Lessons are also about learning new perspectives, new understandings, new appreciations, and new perceptions about the things you already know. So there you have it. Life, love, lessons. Learning some new perspectives, some new appreciations, some new perceptions, and some new understandings about things you already know. So you're not a blank slate. You have knowledge already. So why? Why men? And I'll tell you why men. Because, brother, you are fearfully and wonderfully made. You are a designer special. You are a spiritual being currently sojourning in physical form, having a human experience. So who are you? I am a spiritual being currently sojourning in physical form, having a human experience. And brother, if you understand that, then you will know what a magnificent spiritual being you are, with untapped potential and unexplored capacity for abundant living and loving. That is who you are. You see, if you know your worth, if you really know who you are, let me tell you a secret, brother. You won't need to use a gun or a blade or force to prove you have worth. If you know who you are, a spiritual being currently sojourning in physical form, having a human experience, fearfully and wonderfully made. If you know that, then you don't have to prove your worth because you will know your worth. But you know, we've been through some stuff before we've reached to this point. Can you remember a long time tale that we would have learned as children? What are little girls made of? Sugar and spice and everything nice. That's what little girls are made of. What are little boys made of? Snips and snails and puppy dogs' tails. That's what little boys are made of. Now, what do you think that did to our perception of who we are and how we ought to be? What it did was to put a comparison, a very unfair comparison, and set up conflict between men and women. Because after all, we are sugar and spice. And you are snips and snails on puppy dog's tails. And having grown with that understanding, it makes a big difference to your perception of who you are. And then they took it further. Boys don't cry when you're hurting. If you cry, you're told, stop behaving like a girl. Do you know your worth? Your worth is not in being hard and cold and angry and insensitive. Brothers, are you aware that living abundantly is your legacy? That loving life is your destiny? And that you are fearfully and wonderfully made? Well, it is. And oh, yes, you are. So I want you to see, I am a spiritual being currently sojourning in physical form, having a human experience. I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Living abundantly is my legacy. Loving life is my destiny. So you understand why we have to have life, love lessons with men in mind. The women learned and they benefited from their series of life, love lessons for women of faith. You too will learn and benefit from your series of life, love lessons with men in mind. And women, just as the men were welcome to series 1, you are welcome to participate in series 2. Remember, we are in this life together, bone of one bone, flesh of one flesh. No need to compare and compete. So, I hope you agree with me. There are some lessons to be learned, and there are some secrets to be unfolded. To quote Asige Mombasa, a blind government senator and ambassador from Kenya, I quote, if all you see is what you see, you don't see all there is to be seen. Let me repeat that. If all you see is what you see, you don't see all there is to be seen. There is much more to be seen than meets the physical eye, and much more to be seen than the first viewing or the first sight of anything. You walk into a room and you may look around when you enter, but do you see everything? No, you don't. You have to look again and again, and still sometimes you don't see everything. You know, you can look without seeing, and you can see without looking. I'm sure you can think of some times when that happened. And you can even see without seeing. Do you agree with me? Think about it. And let me ask you a question. Listen carefully. What are the colors of the flowers that line your walkway. Okay, your driveway. No? Your street, the entrance to your workplace, the entrance to your gym, or to the football field, or any place that you pass on a daily basis or frequently. Let me invite you to close your eyes and see if you can see them. Can you see the flowers and the colors of the flowers that you pass on a regular route, on a regular basis? Close your eyes and try to see. With your eyes still closed, don't peek now. Keep your eyes closed. Is there anything blue in the room or space that you are in right now? Don't peek, don't open your eyes. Anything green? What about red? Pink? Brown? Orange? Purple? Open your eyes and check. Were you correct? Did you remember the colors around you? All right, so look around and count for me how many pink things there are in your space. Look around, take your time. Count how many pink things there are in your space. Now close your eyes and tell me how many black things there are in your space. Aha! But you were looking around, weren't you? So you didn't see how many black things there were? Simply because I asked you to check the pink? So then, what do you see? Let's see what you see. Henry David Thoreau said, "It's not what you look at that matters, it's what you see." So what do you see? Do you see a young girl, beautiful, debutante, all decked, perfectly dressed, hair well done, looking beautiful, ready for the ball? Or do you see an old woman, face showing the struggles she has been through, and the fur is just to keep her warm because she's cold? Which one did you see? The old woman or the young woman? Wayne Dyer said, "Change the way you see things, and the things you see change." Change the way you see things, and the things you see change. What do you see? A duck or a rabbit? Some people may only see the duck, and some people may only see the rabbit. You're both right. If you see a young woman, you're right. If you see an old woman, you're right. If you see a duck, you're right. If you see a rabbit, you're right. Your perception is your reality. So, what do you see? And you know, if you see both, that is also right. But if you only see one, you are still right. Because remember, you don't see all that there is to see. So think about it. It's not what you look at that matters. It's what you see. So you look at the picture, but what do you see? Do you see youth or do you see age? Change the way you see things and the things you see change. You look at the picture one way and you see a duck. You look at the picture another way and you see a rabbit. And so it is with life. Change the way you see things, and the things you see change. So I'm going to ask you a next question. What do you see with? Yes, and you answer, my eyes. Are you sure that that's what you see with? Are you sure? Yummy. Ready to eat. Pastry. Dagwood sandwich. Yes. Consider if you just came out of hospital, having been treated for acid reflux, high blood pressure, diabetes. Do you see lovely food ready to eat? What do you see? Excitement, adventure, place to jump, place to swim, place to run. If you are afraid of heights, if you're not a climber and you're not a swimmer, are you seeing an exciting adventure? Well, do you see with your eyes or do you see with your mind? In spite of the pictures before you, you can see images of distress and danger because of the perception in your mind. So what are you seeing with? Your perception is your reality. It's not what the situation is that counts. It is what you perceive it to be. It is how you respond to it that matters. So do you see with your eyes or your mind? We met that expression already. Your perception is your reality. You see, when you look at something, what you perceive it to be is what is real for you. If you look at that food and what you see is the pain of acid reflux and the problems of high blood pressure and diabetes, then that is not a pretty picture for you. And that's your reality. If you look at the other picture and you are afraid, your knees begin to shake, you're getting worried about what's going to happen to that individual who thinks it's exciting. That's your reality, because that is your perception. Your perception is your reality. And you need to come to terms with that. Now, brothers, I know you have been taught to be practical and logical. You have been taught to rely on your senses and to deny your emotions, hide them, and pretend that all is well and you are in control. After all, you name man, so you're in control. You've been taught to rely on your senses, and you have 5 of them. So what you see, and you just learned that you don't see everything, that there is to be seen. And what you hear, and I know you know that you don't hear everything. There are sounds that the dog will hear that you can't hear. And what you smell, some things have the same smell, and some things the smell reaches to you in a different way. And what you taste. But taste is acquired. So things that will taste nice for you will taste horrible for somebody else. And even some things that used to taste nice for you when you used to drink extremely sweet juice and tea, now, oh gosh, you put too much sugar. It tastes, yeah, too sweet. And touch. So those are the 5 senses that you have been taught. They are 5 physical senses. Yes? And you need them as equipment to understand the physical world that you live in. So yes, they are important. But we have been given to put too much importance to these physical senses. So I know there are some of you who will say, if I lose my sight, I rather dead. I can't see what I do in a life. Because you've put so much store on the physical sense. But what have you seen in the little time that we've been together? That if what you see is all you see, you have not seen all there is to be seen. But you see, the Creator in his wisdom, knowing that you are a spiritual being, gave you 6 mental faculties, spiritual senses, super senses: imagination, memory, intuition, perception, reason, and will. We have encountered perception, and there are 5 others to make 6. And these spiritual senses, super senses, mental faculties, are given to you to help you to love the life you live in this physical world. So because you are more than physical, the physical senses are not enough. But we have been taught to depend upon these physical senses as if that is all there is. But that's not all there is, because you are not just a physical being. You are not just a human being. And you know, we use that human being thing to get out of trouble. Eh? Well, I'm only human. So you do all kinds of things. I'm only human. No, you're not only human. You're a spiritual being. You are sojourning in a human frame, using human time and understanding to learn some human lessons. But you are not only human. You are a spiritual being, and you have physical senses to understand the physical world, and you have spiritual senses to understand who you really are, a spiritual being. So let us explore some definitions for these super senses, spiritual senses, mental faculties, as they are called. Let's just see. I think we jumped a line here. Yes. No. Wait a minute. Right. So there are 6 of them. Imagination. Imagination is our image-making mental faculty. It's our super sense in which we create mental pictures of the life we love living. But you know, we also use imagination to create a life we do not love. When you sit and you imagine the worst instead of the best, you are setting up yourself to suffer unnecessarily. Learn to use your imagination to create the life you love living, and stop using your imagination to destroy your life. Don't imagine the worst. Imagine the best, because that's your image-making mental faculty. Memory. Memory is our image-recalling mental faculty or supersense, in which we memorize the vibration of the images of our dreams. And you notice we memorize the vibration because that's where the images come from. But you know, we have been taught that you memorize things, that means you have to go into the past because it's memory, so you're going back. But memory works both backward and forward. Because when you plan and you're preparing to do something, you also have to memorize in the future what you plan to do. Because if you don't, when the time comes to do it, you won't have it to remember. So memory works both ways. Perception, which we've spoken a bit about, is our ability to shape meaning out of the data or information that we receive. And the important thing here is the content of that data or information informs your perception. So if you made of snips and snails and puppy dog's tails, your perception is that you have no worth, that you're a waste of time. And then you have to do all kinds of crazy things to prove that you have some worth after all. The content of the data that you receive informs your perception. So if you're being fed negative content, you end up with negative perception. If you are being fed positive content, you end up with positive perceptions. And yes, for the first few years of your life, you had no say. You just had to accept what was coming to you and try to work with it. And sometimes you fall prey to the negative perceptions and you think that you have no worth. But one thing that God gave us, and He will never take it away from us, is the ability to choose. You have choice. So even though you've been through, you are at a point now where you can choose how you will perceive what you've been fed. And you can choose going forward how you will perceive what you have to experience. Remember, your perception is your reality. The choice is yours. Intuition. Intuition is the gift of knowing without reasoning. Now, I know that you're practical and you're logical and everything has to be reasoned out and work out well, you know? But intuition is that gift of knowing without reasoning. You know, we talk about having a sixth sense. When you realize we have 6 senses extra to the 5, not just one. But what we tend to call the sixth sense, that still quiet voice, that is intuition. It is seeing with the soul. It is the internal guidance system for our life. It is where we have communication with infinite intelligence. So the next time that still small voice, infinite intelligence, speaks to you, listen, hear, accept, and act. Don't dismiss it. And then when whatever goes wrong, you say, but you know, I didn't know that that wasn't. Yeah, but why didn't you follow it? When you're given the information via intuition, learn to accept it and follow it. You know, there's a sage who said that prayer is speaking to God. Intuition is God speaking to us. So we've covered 4 of those super senses. Let's get to the last 2. Reason. Reason is the navigator between the terrain of the visible and the infinite supply of the universe. The capacity to reason is more than the physical senses determine. Now, there are 2 types of reason. There is the human logical reason, where after 1 is 2, and if you put something heavy on water, it will go down and sink. And there is the higher spiritual reason that makes you able to walk on water and not sink. To build a ship that is extremely large and heavy, and it still will not sink. To put an airplane in the air, and it does not fall. There's a higher spiritual reason. And I'll give you a little example of that. I remember some years ago, there was a hurricane in Tobago, and it really made some devastation in Tobago. And I went across to Tobago with some students, and we walked into a street in, I think that's Bon Accord. It's just after you leave the airport coming down. And the street had many big, strong houses. And all of them were damaged. Some window gone, some roof gone, some step leave the house, some door fly out, some. And in that same street, there was a little old house. It was a wooden house and it was old. It was rickety. And it was resting on some concrete slabs that are not really foundation because they're not studied in the ground and all those things. They're just resting there. And this little old rickety wooden house is resting on these pillars that are not perfectly made. And in that little old house lived a little old woman. And when the storm came, all the people in the street were concerned about her because they were sure her house was going first. When I walked through the street, her house was untouched. Not a window fell off, even though they didn't have proper hooks. Not a door fell off. Not a step shifted. That tells us that there's a higher reasoning than the logical human reasoning. Because logically, that should have been the first house to go. But that was not what happened. So we need to understand that reason is not just what the physical senses determine. There is more to it than that. And the final one, will. Will is the capacity to cause ourselves to think and create, not by force, but by allowing and understanding. So people talk about willpower, and they have enough willpower to get whatever it is done. Will is not about that kind of power, force, because when you use willpower in that way, it doesn't achieve what you set out to achieve. It gives you some energy to get something done now, but it cannot sustain you. Will, the real power of will, is in allowing and understanding. So, we've explored the definitions of the 6 super senses. And we also have some distinctions to emphasize. So we're going to look at some significant distinctions that we came across in this lesson. Male and female. Distinct. Male and female. He made them male and female. But bear in mind that even though they are distinct, they have a lot in common. And they were not intended for competition. It's male and female, not male versus female. So we need to stop the fight. Who are you? A human being or a spiritual being? distinctions. If you are a human being, your focus is on the physical, on the human element, on the earth life. If you recognize that you are a spiritual being, your focus is on the spirit, which lives on beyond this life, which was alive before it put on the earth suit, and which will continue to live after it drops the earth suit and moves on. So are you a human being with a spirit, as they say? Or are you a spiritual being with a body? See and seen. If all that you see is only what you see, you have not seen all that there is to be seen. Understand that our eyes do not see everything. And most of what we see is illusion. There is much more to be seen. And we haven't yet moved into the realm of spiritual seeing. We're just talking about seeing with your physical eyes and seeing with your mind via your perception. And understanding that there is much more to be seen. And sometimes you look at something and you have to rub your eye and look again to make sure what it is you think you saw. Yes, because your thoughts interfere with what your eyes are supposed to be seeing. Situation and perception, fact and truth. The fact is, the food looks nice. That's the situation. What's the truth? If you are ill, it's not nice. The fact is, the waves come in and they tumble, and for some people, that fact is an exciting moment for those people who can ride the waves and who can surf and who know how to swim. For some of us, those waves are terror. When we see them coming, we're going to run out of the sea. Our perception is our truth. Our perception is our reality. And physical senses and spiritual senses, distinct. You have 5 physical senses. You have 6 spiritual senses. And while your physical senses are important for your physical life here on earth, your spiritual senses are even more important because you are a spiritual being having a human experience. And therefore, that is where you get your strength and your guidance. So at this point, we've come to that place where we are supposed to do our questions and answers. And I am going to try to see if I can find the chat on YouTube. If I do, then I'll be able to answer. But if I don't, I won't be able to answer your questions tonight. And I am apologizing for that. I have to do some more technology education so that I will be able to master that aspect of it. Either that or I'll have to find back my assistant. Because those of you who were in series one, I had an assistant who was helping me along. So it made life much easier. But he's not available this week. And therefore, I told him, it's all right. I'll make it on my own, man. Don't worry. Well, I think I've made it well enough. Thank God. So, and our time is almost over. Wow. Time flies when you're having fun. So we've come to the end of lesson 1 in Life Love Lessons with Men in Mind. Next week, we shall explore lesson 2, which is entitled To Be or Not to Be. To be or not to be? Some of you will recognize that as a Shakespearean question, but we'll see where it goes next week. So I hope you have enjoyed being with me as much as I have enjoyed being with you, and that you have learned some of life love lessons. I look forward to sharing with you again next week. But as you go, I'm asking you to make every effort to love yourself. It's the only self you have. To love your life. It's the only life you know. To live abundantly. It's your birthright. To love God. It's your purpose for being here. So I thank you, and I wish you love, joy, and peace, all God's blessings, and sweet dreams to you. God bless you. Until next week, please God. See you again. Keep loving and living, and loving the life that you live, and living the life that you love. Bye-bye. Sorry I can't go with the questions, but I promise you, next week we'll have them. Okay? Bye.